For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, we are live and amplified. So let's get ready to podcast.
Fire it up.
I was thinking like you were doing a fairly big span of times, and I sort of thought, well, no one's really going to want to do 3:30 a.m. our time, so I'll jump in and I'll do that.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate you jumping in, and you've been on the podcast before. Wait, it's been almost a year and a half, right?
Yeah, it has to have been ages. I remember Sonny was with me last time as well.
We had you on early on during the pandemic, which that was an interesting time to say the least.
Just kept dragging on. Yeah.
How are things going over in Australia now?
Yeah, not too bad. A lot of us vaccinated, which is great. We've had especially New South Wales, our state, has had pretty decent vaccination numbers. So besides, checking in everywhere online and stuff, it's been pretty normal, which is good, sort of getting back to, doing what we used to do and, just normal life really.
Yeah, for sure. And, that is the one good thing now is it seems like everything's kind of back to normal. I obviously new normal, whatever that means, but it's really awesome to see that things are starting to get back, and shows are starting to happen, because I've seen a few people that we know out in Sydney that are out playing shows actively. Are you guys back out playing shows, or what's going on?
Got some friends that have been playing shows. We've seen, one or two here and there. What we're doing is we've been writing a lot, during lockdown and stuff, because there wasn't really much else to do. A little bit of swapping out members, just sort of getting to the point where we're 100%. So we've got everyone on the same page, ready to play some more shows and get back to learning the new stuff that we've been doing, in the meantime. And, once we hit that sort of level where everyone's comfortable playing the new songs and all that, then we'll, be doing shows again like normal, and hoping to sort of get out a bit and tour a bit and stuff. But we managed, it was mid-May that we played a show in Canberra, which is great. Drove a couple of hours and stayed there and played a show, which ended up being really awesome. And that was back before, vaccinations were at a good rate or anything. So before we really had access to anything. So
yeah, absolutely. It was good. I hope we get to that point here. Well, in Texas, we've always kind of had shows other than like the first 3 weeks of everything going on, or the first 3 months or so. And then after that, we kind of jump right back into smaller shows. Obviously, some of the bigger venues never opened really. But December 1st, I know, is like the big date for a lot of businesses that if you're keeping your job, you got to be fully vaccinated and all that fun stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how life progresses after that. So, but yeah, but I want to thank you so much for jumping on here. Like we'd mentioned earlier, it's been, I think we agree, about a year and a half or so. Obviously the Lenores have kind of changed and gone through some lineup changes, as bands do. We used to take it personally. Like the little side story, when we first started doing Live and Amplified about 6 years ago, it seemed like for the first 6 months, every band we worked with, like within a month after we worked with them, they lost band members or they broke up completely. And it was like, man, if people start connecting the dots, I don't want them to start thinking that we're like band killers.
Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
It's that Tom guy. He's been messing up bands left and right.
but then we started putting two and two together. It was like, no, that's just how it is. You can't take it personally. You can't, whatever. But
with the Lenores, especially, like we've had, more band members than you can count on two hands.
Yeah, for sure.
Like it just happens that way. We've had a couple of people jam and, we sort of get into a groove and we play a couple of shows and then, life happens. People go, oh, I didn't realize, I love doing this, but I want to do it as a hobby because I love doing this other thing as well. Or, I'm moving here or moving there or whatever it is, sort of stuff just gets in the way. So
yeah, because
that's just how it is.
At a point, personal life does come into play. Like I 100% get it and agree that sometimes you have to do what you have to do. But if you like music, you got to try and figure out how to make it work on both sides. Yeah.
And that's, all that's sort of left for us. We just need, one more person to settle in who's sort of on the same page as the rest of us and just 100% only really want to do this.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, absolutely.
Be patient, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned, well, first let's talk about this. So we're here to raise funds and awareness for pancreatic cancer research. And best way I knew how to do it was doing my mom's favorite, because I lost my mom in July to pancreatic cancer. And the best way I knew how to do it was one of the things that she loved doing was listening to my podcast. So it's like, all right, we're going to just do a whole buttload of podcasts and just, see if we could raise some money for a very good cause. So I want to thank you, first of all, for being one of the very first people to sign up for it. It's kind of funny because I could see it just kind of works its way down the list of like, oh, we're going to take the very first spot available. We're going to take the second, like whatever it is. So it's kind of funny how that worked out. But I appreciate you jumping on. You've been a big supporter of what we've been doing for a long time. And I know we chat every once in a while on Facebook, what's going on. And it's very funny because when I always feel really weird when I associate one band with one specific member, just because it's like, oh, there's like 3 or 4 other people in the band that make the band work. So it always feels a little bit weird. And I always associate you with the Lenores but it's cool. It's one of those things that, not having met a lot of these musicians in person or seen them play, it's one of those things where we'll start associating other members with bands as soon as we can get out and watch them play. So
yeah, that's it. I'm really grateful that I could do something like this and sort of jump in. I think it's a really good idea to raise money. And yeah, like I said, just grateful for the opportunity to be able to go like, hey, this is happening. I want to support it. I'll jump in and help.
Have you had any...
Yeah, like you mentioned, I'm a fan of what you're doing. I think it's really good. Got a wide audience and getting people from all around the place. And that's sort of what, music's supposed to do, bring people together.
And it's weird. Thanks to the pandemic, if it wasn't for the pandemic, we probably wouldn't have grown as fast as we did. And that's very weird to say. When everything kind of shut down, we kept growing because it's like, because before it was one of those deals where it's like, oh, we only want to talk to people in person, face to face. That's the best conversation. And then the pandemic shut everything down. And it's like, well, we can't just let this die. And then we opened up the Zoom chat and it's like, oh, let's keep pushing, and now the Zoom interviews, even though I much prefer in-person interviews, it's like, this is the way we're going to do it, at least for now, until, till we start traveling regularly, which we weren't even doing before the pandemic. We travel like once every 6 months, but it's just one of those things. But
mate, I would love to do an in-person interview if we ever get the chance.
Oh, we're working on we're working on coming out to Australia. We're trying to figure it out. We're trying to
figure it out. Someone's going to have to travel somewhere, but we'll make it work.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things we're working on. Like, even before I started talking to a lot of the musicians I have in Australia, it was one of my dreams to visit Australia. Like, when I was in college, I was trying to find a work study program or a work abroad program to go. And I think I might have told you this story on our first interview. I was about this close to taking an internship in Alice Springs.
Yeah.
So, and then then it didn't fall through. And I told somebody else that story, and they're like, yeah, that's probably a good thing, because, and they gave me like every reason in the book. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay, cool.
Definitely on the side there. It's stinking hot. It's basically desert there, all the animals that live there as well. And I mean, it's Alice Springs. Like, I've been there personally, and it's a beautiful place to visit.
Yeah.
But
it was one of those things where they were like, all the negative stuff that you hear about Australia, like all the dangerous animals,
that's where it is.
That's where it is. Like, if you're worried about going to Australia because of that, don't go to Alice Springs. Like, just don't do it. So, but yeah, so Australia has definitely been on my mind. Originally, for whatever reason, I thought Perth was going to be the place we wanted to go. But as I've, not to poo-poo on the Perth music scene, I just don't see anything in Perth.
Yeah.
But
that's real nice. Like, that's a place that's still worth visiting. Yeah. But if you're sort of, if you want to get here and get stuck into music, it's Melbourne, Wollongong, Sydney, Brisbane, what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously this is the PanCan fundraiser. Have you had any personal experiences, family members, anything, anybody?
No, I haven't.
Or just cancer in general?
Not that I know of. Like, sort of distant family, but no one really immediately affected by it.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, I appreciate you jumping on here and just chatting a little bit. We're doing really well so far as donations. I think we're almost to $300 and we just began. So it's pretty amazing how well we're doing already. So I appreciate you jumping on. Let's jump back to the Lenores a little bit. Obviously, or you'd mentioned that shows are starting to happen and you're kind of working through learning new music and stuff. How's the writing been going with the changeover of new musicians? Are you primarily handling a lot of that stuff, or?
Yeah, I think a lot of the time it's fair to sort of associate me with the Lenores because I'm writing pretty much 100% of the songs that we play. That for the songwriting part, that's fair enough. Everyone else does a lot of work though, and I really appreciate them as well. At the start of the lockdown, it was probably maybe like a month or 6 weeks that I just had no motivation at all. I couldn't write anything. I had no drive. Like, all the time in the world, didn't have to go anywhere, and just sort of, it just wasn't there. So it was kind of frustrating just sitting around like, I feel like I should be doing something with this, and then just not being able to, but then after a little while, sort of something in my brain must have loosened up and it started, flowing a little bit better, which is good. So now we've got maybe 7 or 8 new songs that we're sort of working through, and maybe 3 or 4 of them are half decent. So we'll see how we go. We might put out an EP or something like that.
Nice. Yeah, I think a lot of musicians kind of went through that early on in the pandemic, but I also think it really depends on where they were at already. So like if they had already been in the recording studio and they had music ready to release, they had time to kind of adjust to everything. Whereas if they hadn't written or hadn't been into the studio recently, it was one of those deals where, I think because I think originally everyone thought that this whole thing was going to be like 2 weeks lockdown and then we're going back to normal.
Yeah.
At least that's what I thought.
Mm.
You know, squash the curve, maybe 3 weeks just to be safe, but whatever. And then we started to realize, nope, this isn't going to be just a 2 week thing. So I think a lot of musicians went through a weird dry spell or a weird lack of motivation because they didn't want to they didn't want to write something if they weren't going to be performing for a while. I don't know. Like there was like a weird adjustment period, I feel like. So, but I don't know what your takes on that is.
Yeah. Like, obviously if there are, 600 million musicians, there are going to be 600 million different ways of sort of taking it in and, Yeah. But for me, it was just, I would try to sit down and just come up with something. And I think it was just, you can overthink things and you can push yourself when it's not really there, So I think that was just what was happening with me. It was sort of guilt that, okay, I've got all this free time and, I haven't figured out a way to use it. So.
Yeah, for sure. And so you said you got about 7 songs, and the plan is, if you can get them tight enough and worked enough, the plan is maybe an EP, or would it be an EP at that point, or would it be an LP?
Well, I mean,
or are your songs short enough that it would be like an EP?
I think the main thing is the songs have to be good enough to get on an EP. So I got to find, 4 or 5 songs worth listening to get on there. But yeah, that's sort of the plan, bring all the songs in and sort of see what everyone thinks. And, oh yeah, this one's all right. We'll learn this one. We'll play this one live, like whatever it is. We'll probably try and do another video, at least 1, maybe 2, and see how we go. But I'm feeling a lot better with having some material behind us to sort of work with rather than just, not having anything.
Yeah. I can tell it's 3:30 or almost 4 o'clock in the morning for you. Because
man, I'm sort of been all over the place. I
barely holding on, which is,
yeah, I'm doing my best, man.
I appreciate you so much for jumping on here. It's a really glad that you were able to do it. And hopefully once you get once you figure out what the next step is, whether it's the EP or just do singles or whatever, I hope you'll come back on and we can talk about those songs. As far as like what you have written now and where everything stands, what is there like a specific song right now that you're just like, nope, this is perfect, we could probably release it as a single? Or is there anything that you want to hone in on it?
I think there are probably a couple of songs that are, if not 95%, like 100% written. Yeah. But at the moment, I think mainly I want to get everyone settled and sort of playing the songs at a consistent sort of, level. The main thing as well is we, at the moment, there's 3 of us. There's a drummer, Sonny, another guitarist, and myself. Julia has been playing drums for us for better part of this year, and she's really good. It's all really working. And what we're actually looking for now is someone to sort of play synth and like a keyboard sort of role. We'll have them sort of taking over bass lines and stuff like that, and maybe doing some more lead stuff, and just to add another layer to it and make it more interesting.
Yeah.
So I think once we find a person that'll slot in and, play all the shows and stuff and get used to all the songs, I think once we record then, that's sort of when we'll go forward with like an EP and videos or singles, or, you know what I mean? So
yeah, for sure. It sounds like you guys are really starting to set up for a really good 2022, and I'm excited to hear that. And it's so weird how fast 2021 went by, but I think because how long 2020 was. Like, I think you'll admit, and everybody I've mentioned this to, is like 2020 just drug on forever.
Yeah.
And now that 2021 that we're starting to get back out, it just went like this. And it's like, wait, what month is it? You know?
I think everyone was sort of expecting, like you said, with the 2 or 3 week lockdown thing,
Yeah.
I think people were sort of like just waiting a bit.
Yeah.
You know, you sort of expected a short wait, and then it's sort of like when you're at the airport and your plane gets delayed and you sort of like expect it to be soon and it just keeps going.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's like dangling the carrot in front of you and they just keep yanking it away. So,
yeah.
I get it. I'm worried about that because we got Thanksgiving coming up here next week. And where I'm flying to, they're saying that there's supposed to be a whole bunch of really bad weather the day that I'm flying out. And I'm like, man, if I got to go drive to Dallas and sit in the terminal for this flight to end up getting canceled because it ends up snowing really bad or whatever, I'm going to be really mad. But,
Yeah.
you know, it's just one of those things where it's like, I'd rather be safe than sorry. I'd rather for the flight to get canceled in Dallas so I can drive home and be safe. Whereas if I get up to Chicago and there's a blizzard, I can't get home, you know. So I'd rather have it happen that way. But yeah, so first off, I want to thank you so much for jumping on here. Before we go, though, a thing that we are trying is I have an app here that asks a random party question. And so we are going to do this with everybody that we have on the interview. And so your question, would you rather always be 10 minutes late or always 10 minutes early? Or 20 minutes early. 20 minutes early, sorry.
I don't think that's a fair question to ask a musician because I don't know many that are earlier than 10 minutes late. And that's myself included. You know, if
hey, to be fair, you were on time for this, so give yourself credit for that.
Yeah, I set an alarm. I was, you know, up 30 minutes early. But yeah, you know, like as a musician, I don't think that's a fair question because I'm at least 10 minutes late everywhere.
Everywhere, so. I got you. Gotcha. So by proxy, you're just always 10 minutes late being a musician. So that's cool. No, so now what's going to happen is now that it's almost 4 o'clock, it's going to be that weird time of the night of, okay, I'm kind of awake. Do I go back to bed or do I just suck it up and deal with it?
Well, I got to play soccer just down the road at 11. So okay. I'll try and get some sleep and then wake up with enough time for breakfast and then head off. So
gotcha. So is that something that you do just for fun, playing soccer?
Yeah. Okay. At the moment, yeah. If anyone wants to pay me lots of money, I'm all ears.
Nice. I'm trying to get into soccer, and I'm hoping with the what is it that's coming to the U.S. the World Cup? Is that coming next year or 2 years from now? Whatever it is, I'm hoping that I'll get into it a little bit more. Like it seems like the World Cup always gets me into it a little bit more and a little bit more, and I'm just hopefully because like my issue is I don't know who to root for because it's like. I don't know what team to root for. So, everybody I talk to.
I think if you can ever get to a game as well, I think that always like sort of gets you in the atmosphere and, brings it out of you a bit more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's just sporting in general. Going to sporting events in general, that's the way to do it. If you want to break into it, you got to go to a game. So, and it's one of those things where maybe I'll go because we've got the US, they have the Major League Soccer, whatever it's called. And we've got a few teams here in Texas. So it'll be one of those deals where, I'll go down to Austin. I'll go up to Dallas. I'll go to Houston and just kind of see and just by proxy become one of the fans for them. So
yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Which one are you closer to by distance?
Since I don't know where in Dallas the Dallas stadium is, I'm going to say Austin.
Right.
Because Austin's a little bit more confined as far as how everything's spread out. And that team's newer. Like, I think they're getting ready to start. Like, they're getting ready.
Yeah, right.
So that might be the perfect time to jump in and be like, okay.
Yeah, you can be there from day one.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm not a bandwagon fan, maybe for soccer, but not this team. So
that's it.
There it is. But I want to thank you so much for jumping on. If
I really appreciate being able to be on as well. So thanks for having me as well.
Absolutely. If anybody wants to check out your music, any upcoming shows, releases, all that fun stuff, where's the best place for them to go?
It's either going to be www.thelenores.com, which is very easy to remember. Spotify always has everything that we release ends up on Spotify in, a couple of weeks. So it's always going to be there. Facebook and Instagram, we're super active on those. So always putting shows up and stuff. So
awesome. Well, once again, really appreciate it. Thank you for jumping in. And if you are still watching, make sure you hang out all day. We've got an amazing lineup of musicians coming on all day. We will be sharing stories about music like you've been hearing, or, if they have personal connections to pancreatic cancer or just cancer in general. It's a very serious thing. Like I mentioned in the previous interview, because of PanCan and the research they have done, they've been able to raise the survival rate of pancreatic cancer to 10%. And we hope to continue to grow the survival rate. Pancreatic cancer, as most of you know, is a very serious illness that most people don't know they have until it's too late. So if you are concerned or feeling back pains or just not right, make sure you're going to the doctor, make sure you're getting yourself checked out, because you don't want to be that person with, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. So make sure you're getting yourself checked out as you feel the need to. But thank you so much for jumping on. We've got 1,000 Oxen Fury coming up next, and we will be right back in about 5 minutes. Awesome. Cool.